guys? Welcome to another episode of Generation Orange, an episode that feels way too long in coming, even though it's only been like 2 weeks. Feels a lot longer than that. I am one of your co-hosts, Sean Ringrose, and joining me is also.
What's going on, guys? It's Mark. I know I've missed a couple of shows. Oh, both of us have missed a couple of shows, but kind of due to me. You say that, I know it's been 2 weeks, but shit, I feel like I've been stuck in the last 3 days for months.
2020 time passage there. Three
Yeah,
days
man.
equals 3 months. Yeah, I remember those days. I don't want to be back to those
Man,
days.
it's been kind of hectic the last couple of weeks with work and things of that nature, but at last we're here. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, Dynamo is the subject that I saw on our notes, prior to coming on here. So I'm excited to talk about it. Obviously, we have our first 100% capacity match coming up this Saturday, but before we get to all that, a lot of things have happened since the last time we got on here. So, John.
Yeah, I think that feels like an understatement. A lot has happened. I mean, we had ownership had their first press conference. Ted Segal coming in, and honestly, I started off on a very good foot. I would say even started off on a couple of good feet. We've got a new CEO, and that's an interesting dynamic there. And obviously, we've got a new player coming in, and we've got a player going out. What else is going on besides the fact that Tab apparently can't figure out how to actually play tactically on the road? We'll talk about that and a whole lot more. I don't know how long this show is going to be. I'm going to be honest, it could be an hour and a half, it could be 2 hours, it could be an hour. We have no show order. It is all just Dynamo and whatever else happens to pop up as we go along.
But
But
obviously,
guys, oh, go ahead.
but obviously, guys, you're the third co-host of this show, so please, if you're for those of you who are active on the chat right now, I know see Georgie right now, see Noelia, what's going on, guys? Keep it going. Let us know what you want to talk about, and we'll go back and forth with you guys as well.
Hey, you don't want to be watching that game anyways. It's much better watching us live. Come on now. George said we're bleeding into his Mexico game. You'll live. But no, seriously. So let's dive right in with the most important topic, of course, which is actually our new ownership being introduced to Ted Segal. The pictures that people had, shared about him, totally not the same guy. The information they've been sharing, probably fairly accurate, but also fairly confusing. It felt like because some of it was hit or miss. But the one thing that this guy has said repeatedly over and over and over again is he has two things that he's focused on. Number one, his goal is to be a winner on the pitch. He believes that winning on the pitch is going to improve attendance. Winning on the pitch is going to help in a lot of other areas. And the second thing is that he's committed to providing the resources necessary to make that happen. And the one thing I got from him in that press conference is he's a passionate guy. He's passionate about soccer in general. He doesn't have a huge soccer history or anything like that in terms of he wasn't, he played a little bit and his daughters play. But it's not even so much that. It's a guy who wants the organization to be a winner. And a guy who clearly, in my opinion, understands that a much larger investment is necessary in order to get us kind of over the current hump that we're at. What that investment looks like, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. The question was asked, can you try to summarize that? And he said, I don't know yet. It's hard to say, but I'm here to not stand in the way. If a move makes sense, I'm the approver or I'm the denier. And as long as it makes sense, I'm going to put the money forward to make it happen.
And
So, hey, speaking of, just throwing it out there as more of a laughing note than anything else, but hey, Lionel Messi's contract is up right now. He is a free agent. And I'm just saying, Ted Segal, if you're watching, first of all, welcome to the organization. Second of all, greatest owner we've ever had. Third of all, hey, hell of a way to make a splash. I'm just saying, man, like that would be a way to go out with a bang. Like you would
oh,
absolutely turn every head, not only in the league but worldwide. You said you wanted a global organization. Can't get more global than that. Go ahead,
I mean,
Mark.
how quickly do you want to make your money back?
That would that
I mean,
honestly that would be still be pretty quick though.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, man. But let's not forget the keyword here. Resources,
Yeah.
resources, and and that seems to be his favorite word. I mean, obviously, I watched the press conference, introducing him, and with Don Garber and the commissioner from NWSL. Can't remember her name at the moment, but yeah, man, it was a great press conference. I like the fact that that they had a little bit of things up their sleeves, even though as Dynamo fans and supporters, we kind of knew some of those announcements were already on already kind of made. But the fact that he threw it out there doing this a very public event, said the teenage thing before actually all the T's being crossed and all dots being dotted. He threw it out there that it's a done deal. It's just a matter of a visa issue, which obviously with the announcement today of him being signed and he'll be available to us after he quarantines for I think 10 days or whatever. He's our newest player, so it's a great thing. And then obviously the hiring of Jamie Roots, and for those who don't know, obviously, he used to be the old CEO for the Texans. But on the business management side of the Texans, where dealing with the suites, partners, corporate partners, making sure that there's money available for the club coming in corporately and things of that nature, as far as sponsorships. Basically, any spot available on BBVA Stadium or on a Dynamo jersey kit, whatever, it's up for sale. If with Jamie Roots. And another interesting thing about, obviously with Jamie Roots coming in, obviously he had a prior tenure in MLS prior to being the CEO with the Texans, with the old Columbus Crew. So he's not a novice when it comes to MLS and the MLS structure and ways to do things. I think he had a harder time back then because of it was such a new entity back in the days, and now it's far along than what it was back in 99 2000 when he was a part of the Columbus Crew. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Obviously, he gets to stay home where he's made his home for the last 20 years. So it'll be great to see what he does and how much money he can bring into the club.
Yeah, it caught me by surprise only because I hadn't heard anything about it. And to be fair, they had done a really good job of keeping a few other things under wraps that they've been working on. But that was a huge, in my opinion, I'm going to use the word huge win or phrase huge win for the Dynamo. I mean, this is a guy who has soccer experience. He's got Major League Soccer experience, in front office. So why does it matter when it comes to the front office? Well, all you have to do is take a step back and look at what Deanna Witter and John Walker have done in their tenure here in terms of the atmosphere of in the stadium, the atmosphere in and out of matches, the way that the media coverage has changed just in the last couple of years. Somebody had noted earlier on the Surge Discord that there was a Dynamo piece about the new ownership, on the news, airing on one of the news channels during the news broadcast. That's a big deal. We haven't had that in a while, at least not consistently. But beyond even that, this guy comes in, Roots comes in with a ton of experience in terms of business connections, in terms of network connections. One thing he definitely did in his tenure with the Texans is he brought in big international soccer matches and had them played at NRG Stadium. We had the MLS All Star match that was played at NRG Stadium when it was what was it back then?
Manchester United.
Thank you. We've had multiple international matches. We've had the Gold Cup. We had a match against Argentina that I vividly remember because I was in the Sam's Army that the supporters that match, and holy crap, watching Messi live was a surreal out of body experience. Watching him play for Argentina and watching that goal literally probably no more than 50 feet away from me in total. I mean, just incredibly crazy. And to George's note, Roots has come in and from his interviews, you can check him out on the Striker. You can check him out on Corey's, newsletter that he sends out. all sorts of other places. The Athletic, Mark Berman had an interview with him, a short one, but another one, all over the place. But there's a big sense of confidence that he can flip this organization to be world class. And when he's talking about that, he's not talking necessarily about on field product or on pitch product. He that comes with all sorts of other things. That comes with the additional investment. But he's talking about improving the in-stadium experience, improving the training experience for players, improving the player experience from the moment they arrive with the club and sign with the club, improving that even interaction before they sign with the club, improving to the moment that they leave the club, when they hang up their boots, whether they retire with the Dynamo or not, just improving that whole period that they're here, and making every moment of their time here feel world class, so that you can attract the bigger name players and attract them in a way that you can sign them effectively without having to put out additional money simply because you don't have the infrastructure in place to properly, to really draw them in. And the other thing, and to Dynapod's point here, and by the way, make sure you guys tune into the Dynapod show. But pretty sure they're on YouTube, Dynapod. You correct me, share your info in chat. I'm sure it'd be helpful. But one big emphasis that he has had, Jamie Roots and Ted Segal have both had, Spotify. That's where it was, Spotify. There's so many of them now. It's beautiful. I love it. But the focus, another one of their focuses has been on community involvement and improving that connection with the community and really becoming a Houston organization, not just existing in Houston, but actually, living and being part of Houston and part of what makes Houston Houston.
You know,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of the things about, like, what the experience that Jamie Roots brings to the table, especially with the Texans, one can say, what I mean, everything was kind of handed on a platter, because, he was a CEO for a team that and a town that was so starved of football, who had a football team taken away from them. So, everything was really easy for him. Yeah, that may be true, but at the end of the day, you still have to provide the experience, and you still have to provide the wanting to come back, or wanting to be represented, or wanting to represent that organization that he used to work for. And just to piggyback off what Sean was saying, as far as the Dynamo, not just being a part of the city, but being known in the city, being known globally, because obviously the Dynamo playing the global game. When you think of Houston, you want people to think of the Dynamo. You want it to be one of the first things that come up in their mind when they think of Houston internationally. Obviously, with how popular basketball is internationally now, when people mention Houston, you think Rockets. James Harden, well, prior to him going away,
Not
uh,
anymore.
you know,
Sorry.
especially like in football, J.J. Watt, things of that nature.
Not
But
anymore.
but
I like how
but
you keep using players that are no longer here. What are you going to do next day? You think of the Astros and George Springer. Oh wait,
well,
no
well,
longer here.
well, baseball is not that internationally, known. But as far as, like, basketball and football being the two main sports, are
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
get that global outreach. But yeah, but the Dynamo should have a little bit of a head start on that, playing the global game. And then, obviously, with the fact that, if hopefully with the resources that Ted brings, or he allocates to the Dynamo, and hopefully it's a significant amount to kind of catches up to where we need to be at, because you can see it in Don Garber's face as a commissioner. He's very excited about Ted being a part of the Dynamo for whatever reason. Obviously we know that they've had private conversations, and they talked about what they want, what his vision for the Dynamo are, and what Ted's vision are for the Dynamo. And Don has stated in the past in interviews that he believes Houston should be one of the top markets as far as MLS goes, and should have one of the top teams in MLS and in this region, because of all the international people that come here, all the international countries that are represented in this city, and for the amount of people that are in this country. I mean, in this city and the surrounding areas, it's about 7 to 8 million people. You know,
Yep.
I'm pretty over 70, 80 different countries, I'm sure. If not more. And everything is connected to soccer, because everybody knows about the game of soccer. So, I mean, I'm excited. it's a brand new beginning. It's a fresh. I'm not expecting anything so quickly to happen. But obviously we are gonna be in the transfer window here pretty soon for MLS again. Obviously, with news of teenage coming in, it's an exciting moment because obviously that solidifies our defense a little bit more. And we'll get to that later on because our defense has been leaky a little bit. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm ready for this new era to come, and hopefully, if it happens, great. Where to Ted can kind of fast forward us quickly to the top echelon of MLS teams. But if it doesn't, if it takes a little while, I'm willing to give the guy an opportunity to show us that he's for real.
Yeah, so you talk about the transfer window, and the one that we just had the one close kind of at the beginning of this month, and the new one opens on July 7th. So I think technically that's probably when Teenage DB will officially be signed. The contract's already signed, but his official start date will be then. As far as how that goes, I agree with you. There's more to come. That's not it for this season. We've already seen a player transferred out in Christian Ramirez. We talked about it on last show because the rumors have just kind of hit about him potentially going to Aberdeen. I think that's a great opportunity for him. I think the league fits his style of play pretty well, and frankly, the way that Tab wants his striker to play is not exactly how Christian Ramirez is built to play. Noelia would probably slap me for saying that, but it's true. It's a good opportunity for him. And what it does is it opens up and frees up a roster slot for a new forward or new striker to come into the mix. And it's somebody that is likely going to back up Maxi Urruti. Right, Maxi Urruti. Right now, you can't argue that Maxi Urruti is one of the best players on this team. His quality in front of goal cannot be understated for a player that came in relatively cheap and a player that most people, when he came into the club, did not have high expectations or aspirations for him in that position. A lot of people even considered that he probably would have been the backup to Christian Ramirez. But I think there's no doubt at this point that Maxi has taken that role of starting striker and basically solidified himself in that position. Now, if the Dynamo go out and sign somebody for a couple $1 million in that position who is a big name player or a medium name player that's going to attract eyeballs, you better believe that Maxi Urruti's probably not going to be starting anymore. But with that being said, I don't get the sense that that's the case. If they were going to bring in a striker, it's going to be somebody that is a backup, somebody that they intend to have as a backup, and not necessarily the long-term solution at striker. With that said, though, we still have a pretty big hole at attacking midfielder, and I don't think you would argue with that, would you, at this point?
No, obviously, and just to go back to what we were saying, yeah, I was one of those people who had, I mean, the signing of Maxi, I wasn't excited about it at all. Obviously, I known him from his Philadelphia days and FC Dallas days, and he's just been a mess striker, a pretty okay striker, nothing too special to be all hyped about, obviously 6 goals in 10 games is nothing to cry, is nothing to not nothing to not give us props for because I mean he is doing the job that's required that he's able to do. He's taking full advantage of the opportunities that he's given from his wing play and from his midfield play. He does a very good job holding up the ball inside the box and creating positions and sometimes being a decoy to other guys, to give the other guys opportunities to score goals. First 10 games, I think Moxie gets a solid A minus or A for these first 10 games. It's very solid. I think he's obviously been our marquee pickup this season. I mean, maybe some might argue Tim Parker, but as far as scoring goals, and how much of a difficulty we had last season with our number 9 scoring goals, obviously being Mauro or Ramirez last season. For Maxi to be at 6 goals in 10 games, it's a really good start for him. And double digits, here we come, hopefully. But yeah, as far as players that can come in, obviously, they're still looking for that attacking player. Midfield has been kind of crazy. The wing play obviously has been, not on par with what Moxie has been doing. Obviously, the fact with Pasha being out and then Memo trying to step in and him not doing not a damn thing, to be honest. And then obviously Fafa had a great game prior to his suspension because of yellow card accumulation. But still, it still leaves a little bit of wanting more from your wing play because you know what kind of wing play we've had for the last couple of years with obviously what Quintero did last season and what Albert Elise and Romel Kyoto used to do our seasons to that. So we kind of have an expectation for wing play and we're not meeting that right now. And I think if it was on par with what Moxie was doing, I think we'd be a much more dangerous team than what we are currently. And I think we'd be a lot more successful on the road than what we are currently because the road is still killing us. It's still hurting us. I don't think we can be taken seriously as a team. Well, I mean, I think we can make the playoffs, obviously, but as far as being a serious contender and being a serious threat to those big teams in MLS, it's pretty hard because we can't do anything on the road.
Yeah, so Dynapod asked the question, thoughts on Memo up top in a 4-2-3-1 with Vera and Jones as the holding mids. I mean,
Yeah, to be honest, at this moment in time, I'd rather have Corona over Memo.
well, no, Memo up top in a 4-2, so he would be your striker basically.
Oh, no, 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 no. Memo's too small. Too
Yeah,
small.
Memo's not a holding forward. Memo's not a possession holder type player. He just, oh, Cam. Oh, okay, that's different. Thank you for correcting that.
Yeah, that's what I thought
Yeah,
when I read it.
he meant attacking mid. Yeah. There's confusion between the three of us. All right.
Okay, so yeah. Then
Attacking mid in a
I would
4-2-3-1.
I would rather have Corona right now and then Seren backing them up. Because at least with the Seren and Corona, those guys can, if they're really going to be the 10 and they're going to focus on that, I know that they can do the job, without being eliminated or taken out of the game like Membo has been at numerous amount of times, whether he's playing the wing, whether he's playing the 8, whether he's playing a 6. He has a tendency of getting eliminated from the games, and I understand why there's a lot of why we see Memo's face so much when it comes to marketing, advertising, and things of that nature. I understand he's a homegrown player, and they want to push that onto the supporters and fans and basically just kind of promote the Dynamo Academy. I understand that, but as far as what we're seeing on the pitch from Memo right now, I don't think he's on par with what we need as far as going forward to be a dominant team here in MLS.
Yeah, I do. I definitely agree. Why am I suddenly getting echoes, Mark? What happened?
Oh, sorry, it's my phone.
Oh, turn off the stream, bro.
Yeah,
No, it's all good. No, look, I agree. We've been watching Memo for years now at this point, and he's progressed consistently over a number of years. But the one thing I have said this season, I said it last season, and I've even said it 2 seasons ago. Memo's that player that he's going to have an excellent game once every 5 to 6 matches. And it's always going to be that match where you just don't expect it, so it always holds more emphasis, more value. You look at him and you're like, damn, if only he could do that the rest of the time. But the fact is he hasn't, and it seems like he can't. He's been given the opportunities to do so, but he's fallen well short. Go ahead, Mark.
and then you also, I mean, obviously, look, I'm gonna give him his roses too. I mean, he's had a string of games where he's scored goals, been creative, and things of that nature. Not this season, but prior seasons, right? But you also got to think about it. He wasn't a focal point for this team, so nobody really focused the defense or anything, or made adjustments to take Memo out the game. At that time, you were dealing with players like Mauro. You were dealing with players like Albert Elise, Ramon Kyoto. You're talking about international players who play big time soccer, who did big time things in MLS. And then if to be honest, if I'm the opposing coach, look, Albert Elise, Mauro Manota, Ramon Kyoto, they're not going to beat us. If it so happens that this little kid Memo Rodriguez scores the goals, then fine, I can live with that. And that's what he was doing. He was taking advantage of the fact that defenses weren't weren't pressuring him as much as they are now, knowing that he's a focal point to this offense and a focal player to this team. But obviously, you see what it is. I mean, once a team um, um, goes after you and they strategize to take you out of your game, then we see how much of a difference they are as far as from being a starting caliber player to being a bench player. And there's nothing wrong with being a bench player at all. I've always been one of those who I would love to see Memo come in as a super sub. Play the last 15, 20 minutes and just go all out. Against tired legs. I think that's where he can best dominate the game and be able to show his skill set and be able to do the things that we've seen him do prior. But at this moment, as him being one of the focal points of the offense or the team and things of that nature, I just don't. At this moment, I don't see him taking it up to another level. I mean, he can still prove me wrong. He's still young enough to do it, and if he does, great. Obviously that benefits the team. But at this moment, I don't see that.
Yeah, and I don't want to sit on this point for too long because, of course, there's plenty else to talk about besides just Memo. He's not, the whole team, if you will. But, I think it's a good point Houston Dynapod made. He has been moved around quite a bit, wing, midfield, and deep midfield. Playing as a central mid versus playing as an attacking mid versus playing as a winger, playing as a deep midfielder out wide. And we've seen him play that kind of shadow striker role.
Yeah.
But, the other thing is, he does tend to go hot and cold for stretches at a time, and there's not a lot of consistency there. And that's true of...
Go.
Can I finish? No, it's
all good. Go ahead.
I was, and I was just going to add to that, you have to have somebody who's consistent in that playmaker role. You can't afford to have someone who is hot and cold for periods of time, because that playmaker, that attacking midfielder role is the engine that drives this machine. And certainly I think Memo could slot there, but my concern would be when he disappears, there's nobody else intended to really, help distribute that ball, effectively. And we've seen how much Tab likes his two central mids to be the kind of pivot points in the distributors. He doesn't, he wants wings to push up high. He wants his wing backs to put up, his outside backs, full backs to push up alongside them into the attack. And he wants to attack from the wings more so than centrally. Centrally is not where Tab wants to be pushing the ball too terribly much, because he wants to defend centrally. And use the wings to push, to push the attack, and keep the opposition fullbacks back deeper in their own half so that they're not providing pressure the other way.
And
go ahead.
Just this last statement on Memo before we move on to the next topic. I'm done with seeing him on the wing for the rest of the season, for the rest of his career. Honestly, he just doesn't have the pace for it. He's not that physical dominating presence on the wing, nor can he run. Nor do I think he can beat defenders 1v1 off the wing. But obviously he doesn't make that decision to put himself on the wing. And then we can go on to the next topic. Speaking about Tab. And
no, that's not the next topic. I'm sorry. It has come up in chat, so we're going to have to talk about it. Sir, I need you to clarify your statements, basically bemoaning us picking up Fafa Pico in the offseason and the wonderful acquisition that he has absolutely been these last few matches in particular. I know what you're going to say. You're going to come out and say, well, yeah, he's got 1 PK goal and 2 assists. And yeah, you're right if you look at the stat sheet. But frankly, there's not been another player on this team in the wing position that has done any better than that. He has been our best winger overall. And the one thing that Fafa has brought that we hadn't had in seasons past is he is an absolute workhorse. He is going to be that guy that is going to run up and down that pitch, along that flank, and he is not going to give an inch to any other player, regardless how much taller that player may be than him. He is physically manhandled game after game after game, and somehow still creates an opportunity here or there that nobody expects and nobody sees coming. So Mark, I just need to get I need to hear you say it that maybe Fafa's not as bad as you thought. But however, I do want to note this: when Mark has challenged Fafa to step up. That's what I'm going to call it. Has challenged him to step up. He has stepped up into that role, and he's become that player that we can count on. So, Mark, in saying that, I'm hoping you still go total heel mode here and go ahead and rip into him so that
No,
we
I
reverse
mean,
psychology Fafa
yeah.
into Saturday's match having the game of his life. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, obviously, like I said, before I make any statement here here going forward, I mean, I've always been adamant that I want Fafa to succeed. Obviously, he's a Dynamo player. I support him, and I want him to be the best player that he can possibly be to lead this team. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm sure Tab brought him in, right? But with that being said, obviously, yeah, the game prior to him missing this prior game, because of yellow card accumulation, I think that was his best game,
He's
by far.
he's been
Um,
steadily. I would say he's been steadily improving.
yeah,
I think
but
he's found that
that,
rhythm. He's found that rhythm on either side. He's more comfortable with the players around him. Go ahead. I
yeah,
just wanted
and
to add
that's
that.
great. And that's great. And it only took 9 games, which is kind of but because he's a MLS veteran and he should already know the league and how everything is played, right? I would understand if he was a newcomer to the league. But and speaking on the fact that he's the best winger we've had, I mean, you're comparing him to a Memo who doesn't know how to play wing, Asher who's been injured for 6 games, and then Lassiter, who started 1 game, did really good and never got to start again for whatever reason. I don't know what's going on with that situation, but that's neither here nor there. So I mean, the competition isn't stout competition to be the best winger and Dynamo for 2021. I mean, but yeah, by far he's been the best because he's had the most opportunities. And with that being said, obviously I know the stats don't show it right now. Obviously, him only having 1 goal coming from a PK and then the 2 assists. But with that being said, like I mentioned prior, the wing play that we're used to as Dynamo fans has been exceptional, you know, and we're continuing having a 4-3-3. That's great. So that means you have to have exceptional wing play to have a successful 4-3-3. No matter if you play with 2 8s and a 10 or 2 6s and an 8, whichever form of the 4-3-3 you play, you need exceptional wing play. And I'm not gonna take away from the fact that he gets back on the ball on defense and things of that nature. That's great. But how many times am I willing to see am I willing to sacrifice my wings for defense? I mean, that's why we brought in Tim Parker. That's why I'm hoping that we, with the signing a teenage, that solidifies our defense. You know, that's why you made your 2 highest purchases are two center backs. So obviously you're solidifying the line. So I shouldn't have to sacrifice my offensive players as much to help with the defense. You see what I'm saying? And as far as the wingers go, I mean, like I said, I need him to not only show that grit that he does going back for the ball, but I need him to attack. I need him to show better movement. I need him to do better with the offside thing. The offside thing is such a killer. It's such a damn killer. I'm just and it happens to every winger. It happens to all the best wingers. I mean, the game we were speaking about the Euros earlier. I think it was the game against Portugal where Mbappe had like 3 offsides and he just killed the whole momentum for France. You know, but obviously with being local in the Dynamo and fought with all the speed that he has, I see how sometimes he can just go into full blast mode and outrun the defender and just put himself outside. He needs to understand that he needs to slow it down a little bit. He needs to understand that he has the pace to beat a defender and not have to put himself offside. But with that being said, he turned the page on. He turned the page. Hopefully, now that he's had a little bit of time off because of his suspension, he comes back. We're gonna have hopefully 100% capacity at the stadium July 3rd. It's gonna be real nice atmosphere. Hopefully, it motivates him and he comes out and shows out. That's ultimately what I want from Fafa. It's never been about I want Bahamich over him or Lassiter or Quintero. I want whatever is best for the team and whoever can do the work that's needed for us to score goals. Because at the end of the day, what we need is goal scoring. It's always been the thing that's kind of haunted us.
I mean, would you say, Mark, that the team that scores the most goals is going to win the next match?
100%.
I mean,
You know,
by
you
by
know,
my
you know.
powers of common sense and logic, I can do the math there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's and like I said, I'm not gonna knock on Fafa too much anymore. Well, I'll continue knocking on him if his quality falls and he keeps starting. My thing is that if you're gonna get a starting position job and any squad, soccer, whatever sport, you better do a damn good job to maintain that spot, especially when you have so many more people behind you for that same spot. I don't know what the deal is with Lassiter. I don't know why he's not being chosen to play wing, to start wing, and we're picking Memo. I don't know what the deal is with him not playing Bahamich. I don't. Obviously, we kind of know what the conflict is between him and Tab and Darwin Quintero. But you saw Darwin Quintero come in the last game and spark the attack. For as much as we hate what's going on with him, or whether we're against Tab, we're on Tab's side or we're on Quintero's side of the issue, whatever. When he gets on that pitch, he makes things happen offensively. I'm not. Fafa's a way better defender, but he's an offensive player. I'm not too worried about my offensive players being the best defenders, and I'm trying to score goals.
You could say that, but I think in Tab's system, your outside, your wingers, your wide midfielders, whatever you want to call them, they have a responsibility to at least help cover back in
No,
the
no, no, no. Yeah,
system.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, look.
So you
I'm
could
not.
say no. Well, here's my point to that. You can say you don't need, you don't care if they can't defend, but the truth is, Elise couldn't defend. There was
No.
one thing Elise couldn't do; he couldn't defend, and there were plenty of times where his incapability of defending hurt the team. And he,
But let me ask
he
you this.
was the most talented player on the team.
Let me
So
ask you this. Obviously it's hot as hell in Houston, right?
that's
We're
not the
we're
word you
about
wanted to
to
use, but good,
yeah,
good job
we're,
catching yourself.
we're about to get into the nitty-gritty as far as humidity and heat and all that stuff. You know, with the Elise and even with Quintero, and we're only using obviously last season as far as with Quintero, right? Because that's the first season he was with us. You see where they focus most of their energy onto the offensive side of the ball because they're wingers, right? Yeah, they didn't really focus on the defense. They kind of like they got beat and this and that. But you can see that when we needed something to happen with those guys, they made it happen offensively. And right now, as much as I love to hear Eddie Robinson on the broadcast praise Fafa for his defense, at the end of the day, I need to see Fafa score some goals. I need
You
to see
know,
him. I need to see him create crosses to Maxi or to Ramirez at that time, or whoever's in the box to score goals. Not
so
like I said.
I'm gonna
Go ahead.
argue a point that you just said. When we needed those guys to step up, they would step up. I'm gonna argue that was not the case. When we
Well, I
needed
mean,
those guys to step up offensively, 9 times out of 10, Elise was missing goal. Nine
well,
times out of
yeah,
10, Morrow was nowhere to be found. If he got the ball at his feet, we were lucky if it was anywhere near goal last season.
but
You know, it, it,
it could be it could be a lot of many different reasons. But at the end of the day, when we needed some offensive, attacking, there was attacking offensively. There
sure.
was there
In
was
the
an
early
attack.
stages of the match, we suffered the exact same issues last season that we have right now, which is that we cannot defend a lead and that we would always score goals early and not hardly ever score goals past the midpoint of the match.
And to speak on top of what you just mentioned, we cannot defend a lead, and yet I'm sacrificing one of my offensive players to go help defend, and we still can't defend the league. So it goes both ways. Like I understand there has to be a balance, for offensive and defensive players, but when you're the top three of the formation, your focus should be more offensively than it is defensively, right? When you're the back four, your priority is more defensively than it is offensively. That's why sometimes we get on Lundy because even though we love to see him make the runs up top, I need him to focus on his defensive priorities sometimes too because he gets beat sometimes because he's so far up. But regardless, there needs to be a better balance. And I hope the fact, that they invested money with Parker and now, teenage, And then obviously last season we're bringing players like Valentine and I'm missing somebody here, but and drafting Barlow, but obviously we haven't seen him yet. But um, it'll help along with not having to rely on offensive players to come back and help.
Yes and no. I mean, some of the best teams in MLS, if they're, even if their attack is generating on all cylinders, they're still susceptible to the counter. They're still susceptible to the opposition attack. One thing to keep in mind, and I'm not bringing this up to argue. I'm bringing this up because I think it needs to be brought up. Is MLS is a different beast compared to other international leagues in that we are very much more an offensive minded league than we are a defensive minded league. That's not to say that there aren't teams that aren't focused defensively. You look at your Philly, you look at your Seattle, two teams that have this season in particular been very solid defensively, and they're also unsurprisingly two of the best teams in the league. But the important thing there to keep in mind is that look at those two environments as well. Home matches or away matches for that matter. It's just very different environments in terms of the way that they play. Seattle's not going out there and they're not running for a straight 90 minutes. They're not pushing the attack for the full 90 minutes. Philly are not going out there on the front foot every match. They're not out there the entire match going full bore 90 minutes. This has been my biggest frustration, and I'm bringing it up. I'm going to harp on Tab, the one guy in this organization that I really had hoped would be better than he's been from a coaching perspective, from a tactical perspective. Look, you have to understand as a coach that you cannot expect your players in this heat or otherwise, on the road or otherwise, to go a full 90, going full bore with a high press. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't work. There's very few teams in the world that can do that, and they have fitness regimens and programs that are far stricter and far more rigorous than ours have ever been. And the reason I say that is that Tab just wants his players to go the full 90 with the high press. And it just doesn't work. It's the reason why we get 2-3 goals going into halftime, and then we give up 2-3 goals by the end of the second half. It's the reason why we constantly see this major let off, going into the second half, because guys are already exhausted 45 minutes into the match because they've run straight hard for 45 minutes. The best teams that press, they understand two things. Number one, they understand you don't press the entire match. You don't press for the entire 90. What you do is you understand and learn when to press and when not to press. You understand and learn how to apply pressure without exerting nearly that high level of energy, so that you have that energy left when you do finally get the tackle in, or you do finally intercept that pass, or you do finally get the mistake from the other team, that you can capitalize on it no matter what minute it is, whether it's the minute 1 or minute 90. You're there and you have the energy to be able to capitalize on it.
It's funny about
Oh, go ahead.
when you talk about pressing, you know, how cliche is it, like in every soccer broadcast, especially MLS broadcasters, whether it be ESPN, FS1, or even locally here on with Glenn and Glenn and Eddie, you gotta press the first 15 minutes. You gotta find that first goal in the first 15 minutes to put the opponent up against it, I guess. Yeah, the first 15 minutes when you're fresh and you're ready to go, you stretched out, you've been stretching out, you've been warming up, you go press, and then you see usually the rhythm go a little bit down, because now they got to conserve themselves, because after running 15 minutes straight, at an aggressive level, trying to get a goal, you gotta bring it back down, because you still got a whole 30 minutes after that 15 minutes is gone to keep going, you know. And then obviously halftime comes, you recover a little bit, but then you got a whole nother 45 to go if you're one of those players that play the whole game. So you can't gas yourself out. And unfortunately here, I mean, you saw what Portland did. They let the Dynamo, hey, go and run as much as whatever you want to do. We're gonna hold back as much as we can. Whatever we give up, we'll try to get it back the last 15-20 minutes. That's what they ended up doing. Unfortunately, Pasher missed the gimme, which could have made it 3 goals. And I know there was another opportunity where somebody else missed it, and it could have been 4 goals. It could have been 4-0 easily. But but for the simple fact that Portland let them have those two goals, really, because I mean, you saw how dominant the Dynamo were the first 45 minutes, but then you saw how dominant the Timbers were the last 45 minutes, and especially with substitutes. The substitution game is something that that can win or lose you a match. And unfortunately, for these first 10 games, I think it's Tab substitution strategy or whatever he's going about has lost us at least one or two games this season that I can think of off the top of my head. One, obviously, I can think of because we traveled up there was the FC Dallas game, which I felt it could have been a winnable. We should have won that game on the road, but we didn't because the substitutions weren't there. Players were lacking and out and running with their mouths open, and they're not being subbed. And then obviously this game against Portland Timbers where we let the game slide. Why are you subbing until the 75th minute?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Especially in the heat or especially on the road. I mean, look, the other thing that, and we talked about it, a few weeks back, we talked about the 5-man back line. What are you trying to prove, Tab? It clearly was a disaster, but beyond that, it is unfortunate to me that Tab does not have the confidence going on the road and in the way he's selecting the team or selecting the 18 and the 11. My major concern there is what is the message that tells the players. The players see a 5-man back line, they're assuming you want to go in there and you're really playing for that draw. You're not playing for the win on the road. And you have good enough players to push the tempo, to push the pace, to create opportunities. Now, with that said, again, it falls on Tab to teach these players, especially the younger players, how to effectively press and do it, and pick and choose when they press. Look, if you watch any amount of Premier League or any amount of Champions League or any amount of Euros, you hear the announcers talking all the time about understanding when to press and when to sit back and let it come to you. It takes a football mind. It takes a keen understanding of the game to understand that or to do that. And if the players we have don't have that football IQ, then that falls on the general manager and that falls on the coach. If the players that are being brought in don't understand that they can't go a full 90 or don't understand their bodies enough to know that, hey, I'm starting to get really tired, I need to call for a sub. If that never happens, if that doesn't take place, if these players don't understand enough, then there's a problem there. And that needs to be addressed. That needs to be tackled because until it is, I don't care how good the players are that we get in here. It's not going to make a huge difference overall because come the 45th, come the 60th minute, we're going to be under so much pressure. We're going to concede. It's going to happen.
And speaking of a 5-man backline, as if I'm a coach and the other team is showing me 5 men in the back, guess what? Guess what I'm about to do?
I'm putting all my attackers in the mix.
I'm about to press. I'm about to press the shit out. I'm about to press the heck out of
those guys. Say it. Nah, say it.
I'm about to press the shit out of that team. Why? Because it's more likely for them to make a mistake when there's so much pressure being applied to them, even though they have that extra defender, than it is if they just play the regular system and play the regular formation with the regular players, what they've been doing for the 60, 70 minutes of the game. Because once you add that extra component of an extra player into the defense, your space as a CB or right back or left back becomes smaller, and then you start crashing into each other's spaces, and you mix up, and you don't know who's supposed to be marking who, and that's where the confusion starts to increase, and then especially once you start playing more pressure, there's much more opportunities for holes to open up, for attackers to become open, and for goals to be made.
Yeah, and the other thing that you see, and you know what, I think this probably speaks to what we've experienced as Dynamo fans from the team in the last few seasons is, you get to those later stages in the match and your players are tired. What starts to happen? You start to have those mental lapses, those mental errors. Guys aren't in the right positions. They're not marking the correct player. They're not marking a player in the box. They go for a tackle they shouldn't go for. They get a red card. They get frustrated. Whatever it is, it's a lapse in mental judgment. And it is. Sorry, I saw the name Sean and it totally threw me off. I mean, if we had Sean, yeah, that'd be great. I wish I could be coach. But it's a different situation, and especially when a player is tired, it's just mentally it's exhausting being
And
out there for 90 minutes, especially when we are at full humidity and full heat. It's just I can't even imagine trying to play in that for 90 minutes. I just
and
can't.
do you understand what the most frustrating thing about this whole situation is, Sean? Is the fact that MLS is still playing with 5 substitutes per game. You get 5 subs. You get three windows to make 5 subs.
Yep.
Imagine if we went back to 3 subs. How much more horrible this team will look physically, because it doesn't matter how much you train in this weather. Yeah, we might have a little bit of a leg up for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but after that, it goes back to the same being on par, man. No, nobody ever gets used to playing in this weather. You know,
No.
I mean, dude, why do you think the World Cup in Qatar is not going to be in summer? It's in the wintertime, because nobody can play well under those conditions. And
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is that he needs to understand that he needs to use his subs earlier. I don't need to wait till my mid till one of my till Derrick Jones is out there just gasping for air. I don't need to wait for when I see Joe Corona, you know, bent over on his knees when the ball's out of play trying to catch his breath. I don't need to see that. I need to get the next player in before that happens. And I know Derrick Jones doesn't get tired. It's just the first name that popped into my head.
Oh, he gets tired. He was tired last match for sure.
Yeah.
No, I note, and I think George hit a good point here. He says I think MLS needs the 5 though because MLS has the worst stamina of all the leagues. I think that's really true. We don't have teams, and maybe this speaks to why we have yet to really capitalize on opportunities in in the CONCACAF Champions League. Look, we're not a stamina based league. We're not a league where we expect our players to be stamina beasts. And frankly, if the Dynamo made, CONCACAF Champions League again with this same team, I think we would be in the same boat we were when we faced Tigres. We would be, we would absolutely be the team that would be on the back foot the entire time. And it's not to say it's a gulf in talent discrepancy or anything like that. I mean, there is a huge gap there. But even forget that. It's the lack of stamina. It's the lack of fitness. It is it's not something where our players in MLS, let alone the Houston Dynamo, are able to go out there for a full 90 and not be gassed at some point. There's a reason that MLS had to institute the water break rule, the hydration break rule. Look, that didn't come from FIFA. MLS was the first one to really try that out, to trial it. And it stuck because it helped the attack quality of the matches. It helped players be not nearly as exhausted. But the fact is that was brought in because MLS players don't have the stamina to keep up otherwise.
And think about it, Sean. I mean, it's crazy because as a player, a bench player, what kind of mindset are you putting on your bench? You know that you're seeing your peers, your colleagues, your teammates out there gasping for air. Imagine I'm Lassiter. I see Pasher out there gasping for air. I see Memo out there gasping for air, or Fafa or whoever. Dude, like, I'm sitting right here. I'm ready to go. Put me in, coach. You know, like, do you really think a gassed out Pasher, Memo, or Fafa is better than a ready to go Lassiter? I mean, if he is, then Lassiter shouldn't be on the bench at all. He's taking up a spot for somebody else that could be. The same thing with Bahamas, the same thing with Quintero. Look, I understand he has a lot of trust in like players like Darwin Saran, but that's why we always see Darwin Saran as the first player to come off the bench. You know, he's always the first one. If you notice, I mean, at least for 8 out of the 10 games that we've had, he's been always the first player to come off the bench. But like, as far as our other players get gassed too. I understand that you have certain trust in these players and these players can do certain things, but a 50% Fafa is not better than a 100% Lassiter. I'm sorry, you know? as much Fafa love as there is in on the chat, and as much as Sean loves Fafa and everybody else loves Fafa, a 50% Fafa is not better than 100% Lassiter. You know?
I agree. I completely agree
So
with you. I
so
have no
so
problem
I'm
with that.
so why can't you give Lassiter the last 15 minutes of the game, the last 20 minutes of the game, especially if the guy's so gassed out because he had to go back on defense and defend.
Yeah, I just wanted to point it out and talk about it. Someone had asked me on Twitter, why it was kind of became a Twitter conversation when I brought it up originally, but somebody had talked about or asked, why are if the heat and humidity are such a problem here, if players are so tired because of playing in the heat and humidity now, why wasn't that an issue when we were at Robertson, or why wasn't that an issue in the early days of the Dynamo in 2006, 2007 when we had our championship runs? And I said there's one big difference when you look at the two teams. The biggest difference is the fact that they didn't play a high press tactic. They didn't press for the full 90. Those teams pick and chose exactly when they pushed, exactly when they pressured. 90% of the time on the road, and the reason that we were still terrible back then on the road is because we were picking and choosing when we wanted to take our opportunities on the road, and there are far fewer and less in between on the road than they are at home. But the other thing is we had tired players back then. We had players that would cramp up all the time, players that hit injuries because they were so exhausted because they were so tired and so hot.
But, but
I
you
mean,
also had but you also had a more veteran based team,
you
like
did, but
I
my
mean,
point is because of the tactical approach of Dominic Kinnear, his players were not constantly running the full 90. He included opportunities for players to find their moments to rest, to get those few extra moments where they can take a quick breather to be able to catch their breath. In Tab's system, if that ball goes out of bounds, you're not slowing play down. You're going to grab that ball as quick as possible and get it back into play because he wants his guys running hard, hitting the ground running for the entire 90 minutes. And there is no way that players can do that. It just doesn't work.
and also it helped the fact that Dom had trust at his bench. Because it didn't matter if it was look at the bench he had during those championship years. A young Stuart Holden, who before we knew what he was, we didn't know what Stuart Holden was. A young Corey Ash. Before we knew what Corey Ash was, he didn't. He was a bench player that came in every once in a while and helped out. Logged in minutes. The thing is that you have to give these guys opportunities. If they're making your match day 18 and they're on your bench for a reason, use them. Use them. If you don't have faith in them, then lose them. Get rid of them. Because I know I'd be damned if I'm gonna have somebody on my bench just to have somebody on my bench just because they make the 18 that I need to give it this game. That's why you have an academy. That's why you have players on the cusp. George says hashtag play reels. Hey, give the kid a shot. He just got his first international cap for El Salvador. How do you have, I mean, and he did really well in that game for the, I don't know who else watched the game. I watched it because obviously I'm Salvadorian, but he did really well in that game. Reward that. Give the kid an opportunity. You have these 3 games in 8. You have these 3 games in 8 days coming up. Quite often in this year. Do that. Give them an opportunity. Rotate the team like you say you are. You don't rotate the team at all. To be honest, just because you switch out 1 or 2 players, that's not rotation. That's not rotating the team. You know.
There's a player that's currently available on a free right now. He's no longer under contract that I think actually does, from a backup striker perspective, fit very well with this team and what we want to do. And that's Kai Kamara, a player who's played for Houston before. Look, yeah, he's old. He's definitely old. He's not a player that's going to go out there and give you the full 90. That's not what you're looking for. What you're looking for is a player who can supplant and give Maxey that rest that Maxey needs in order to keep this pace that he is going at. You need a player who understands MLS and understands how to beat MLS defenders in those last 10 to 15 minutes. You need a game changer, and Kai Kamara, even at this age, can still be that in a substitute, super sub role, if you will, at striker. And we know we have a striker role available, a striker position available right now. So why not take a runner on him, take a chance on him? You never know what you're going to get. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we know Kai Kamara. We know what he's done in MLS. I think he's like top five all time in MLS scores, a goal scored in MLS history. So obviously he's had a storied career for MLS, and it's you're not asking him to be the Kai Kamara when he first came here under Dom. You're asking him to play 10, 15 minutes at most to give Maxi some rest time sometimes, because what good does it do seeing Maxi run 90 minutes every game, especially in games, even though I know this doesn't happen so often, that we're up by 3 goals or things like that, or games, where we're down 3 goals and we just, he's just not into it. Bringing somebody who can be a change of pace, somebody with a little bit more veteran presence, understands how to get things done from a different perspective. Being a veteran means that you understand how to do your job differently than what you're used to doing. It's very easy to do things when you're fast and you're young and you have all the energy in the world. But once you become an older player and you have to adjust yourself because your body doesn't give you what it used to, and you're still able to do what you were able to do, that's what separates the players from the greats, regular players from the greats. And Kai Kamara's been an MLS great. He's scored everywhere he's gone. Just think of what he's done. He did for Minnesota United last season. He wasn't brought in there to make it to be a game changer. He was brought in there to, give some leadership and some veteran presence when they needed him. And that's what he did.
Yeah. So, man, it's actually been a really good conversation, guys. Thanks. Appreciate that. But yeah. Anyways, I that's one of my favorite topics to talk about, which is tactics.
Hey, and before
What
that, on the chat, Houston Dynamo says, at least we didn't trade Wando. Shout out to Cam Weaver.
Oh, why'd you have to bring that one into the mix? Oh man. I mean, it was a win now mentality back then, and Wando was not a win, was not a kid that was in a win now position or situation. It took him a couple of years. And he needed to develop. And Houston, at that point, we were not a organization that was developing players into starters at all. Stu Holden was
We
Stu
were a top
Holden.
echelon franchise back then.
Yeah, we were a veteran team, as you noted, not a team of rookies or young players. And it's a shame because I mean, if Wando had stuck around, if we hadn't traded away Wando, I mean, the opportunity there for Wando to be, he would have. I mean, God, how many years did we need a striker like Wando in this organization? And
I mean,
and
think
just
about it. We gave up Wondolowski, the most goals scored all time in MLS history for Cam Weaver, right? We moved Kai Kamara on because we had Luis Angel Landin, for those who don't remember, and
don't no. Oh.
he was supposed to be the
Why
focal
are
point of
you
the offense.
taking the dagger and twisting it deeper in my back? Come on, man. This is
So
uncalled for pain right here.
I mean, just imagine, dude. We let 2 of the top 5 all-time goal scorers leave the Dynamo because we thought we had other players that could have done the job for us. But the past is the past. We got 2 championships.
3 technically because we ended up with an Open Cup. Don't forget that. It's
Oh, well,
important.
but not that era. The era
Oh,
that
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
2 championships and 4 finals. So
Anyways, enough about sad times. No more sad boy hours. Let's talk about positive things. So you mentioned Teenage DB's on his way. Like I said,
yeah, already.
the transfer window for the summer officially opens July 7th, which means that transfers can technically be completed at that time. Unless they got the paperwork in for the transfer of Hadibi, which may have happened. I don't know when it actually got submitted, but unless that happened, he's not going to clear before the 7th, which means we have at least, another match, maybe even 2 matches before we get to see him. But after that, he is supposed to be ready to go. He's coming from a place where he was already in full season, basically had just finished his full season. He's fit, he's match fit, he's ready to go. I don't know how many highlights you guys have looked at or have seen, Mark. I don't know how much you've researched into him, but he is a player that coming from the team he was on, he was a very gifted technical player. He was very capable with the ball at his feet. He's a decent defender. I hate to use this comparison because I know already that there are going to be some people in particular, I'm looking at you, Mark, who are going to just roll their eyes at this comparison, but he genuinely reminds me in how he plays of a young, well, not even a young, of a Davison Sanchez from Spurs.
Who would pick a Tottenham player?
No, and it's not even so much that it's a Tottenham player. It's the way that Davison Sanchez plays. It is they very much mirror each other. And to me, the unfortunate thing is I'm not high on Davison Sanchez. I'm not a fan of how he plays. But on the flip side of it, here in MLS, in the style that MLS plays, and partnered with a Tim Parker, maybe I can grow to love it here. I don't know. We'll find out. I'm hopeful that maybe bringing in Teenage DB will be enough
Well,
to solidify that back line so we don't give up these goals in the last 10, 15 minutes of matches. Go ahead, Mark.
well, I mean, like if that comparison is what if that's the comp you want to use, then then obviously Davison Sanchez is not obviously then Tim Parker's the anchor of the defense, which he's the bigger, more physical guy, and Teenage Hadabi is obviously the more uh pacey finesse guy
Are you
who
comparing Tim Parker to Toby Alderweireld?
not really, but
Sorry, I gotta keep the Spurs talk alive, man. Come on,
but I mean,
we
but
finally have a
but
freaking coach, man. Come on.
but the thing about it is if teenage obviously his built obviously he obviously will be the more finesse willing to push the ball up as a defender type player so I can see where you get the Davison Sanchez comp but with that being said if he's able to do that great but at the end of the day I just want the guy to be able to defend I don't really care too much for my defenders to push up if they when they can, great. When they don't, when they were not able to, then that's fine. Protect the goal. But from everything I've seen, I mean, obviously, the one video I saw of him, is obviously just nothing but highlights. Everybody can look good on the highlight reel. He looks good. I mean, obviously, he's been playing at the Turkish league, which is a very underrated league. But at the same time, he was fighting off regulation and they succeeded in that. His team stayed in the first division, so he's ready. Obviously he's gonna need a couple of days just to get the fitness level back up. But I'm ready to see him go. Obviously, with the disappointment of not being able to see Bartlow, gotta get on the pitch. Not so much disappointment of seeing Minor start games, but just respect to Minor for the fact that he's able to still continue to be in the great physical shape that he's in. But it's great to finally have a center back duel that I think it's capable of doing the job that we need him to do.
Yeah, I sure hope so. It's always difficult when you have a player coming in from internationally from out of the league. There's always an adjustment. It's always been true, and especially if you're talking a player coming in as center back. Um, Mark, you funny. It's just I don't hold the biggest mic. Let's just throw it out there on that. Actually, we have the exact same mic for what it is worth. But to my point, it's difficult for a player transitioning between two leagues. I'm hopeful that Teenage can make that transition pretty swift and pretty easily, but I hope that there's not too much pressure and too much hype put into Teenage DB because, frankly, we do that with every player that has even a remote, international presence. Lundy, when he came in, there was so much hype around him. Lassiter, when he came in, there was so much hype built up around Lassiter. There are people out there that do try to temper the excitement and temper the hype a little bit, but frankly, it is difficult as a Dynamo fan. I'm guilty of this constantly. Where in reality, it is, you see the name coming in, you don't really know who they are, or maybe you've done a little bit of research. They're coming in from a league or from a position division where they were relatively dominant, for their team.
But to just to not kind of like I guess to play devil's advocate in that, I think it's one of those things as a Dino fan, as a supporter, I just want to see an acquisition come in and just run with it. Um, Obviously, the thing with Lassiter, his first game was great, a brace, and obviously he dominated in the Costa Rican league, and he was a player who's familiar with MLS because he was with the LA Galaxy B team prior to him going to Costa Rica, and then he's a Costa Rican international. So you're thinking like, man, he has all these accolades. He comes into MLS, does what he does, but then falls off. A lot of people say because obviously Albert Leith left and it was a different type of game afterwards, things of that nature. Um, the thing with Lundy, obviously he came in with a lot of accolades too. He was a Swedish international. Played really good. I mean, Cup Iron Man. This guy plays every game, every minute. So as a supporter and a fan, I want to be able to have a player come in and just take over. You know, I don't want to have grace periods for every player that we bring in. Otherwise, we're gonna lose games and lose out. We have to have players come in that are ready mentally to come in here and take over. And and maybe we're not able to get those type of players because of the money that has been allocated for that. Obviously we know that it's been kind of a penny pinching kind of type of deal with Gabriel Brenner and the prior regime. But hopefully now with the resources that we're going to be accoladed by Ted, hopefully we're able to find a more experienced player who's ready to come in and take over.
Yeah, I mean that's to note that's definitely the hope. That's definitely the some people would say the expectation at this point is that he does end up being that type of player. I'm hopeful that, at the end of the season, if not the summer transfer window, we see kind of a splash of a move. I don't feel Teenage DB is necessarily a splash of a move. It's the type of move that is a little bit above what we probably would have done prior to Ted Segal taking over. But to me, it doesn't feel like a big ball move. It doesn't feel like, Ted Segal pushing his weight around as as an owner and saying,
You know what?
I want to win this league. Go ahead.
You know what kind of move this is? These are the moves that franchises make to solidify their franchise. To solidify their foundation. You know, and Teenage Hadabi shouldn't be our biggest acquisition in the
No,
summer.
no.
You know, he's something to solidify the defense, someone to solidify the foundation of this team. You know, obviously Tim Parker being re-signed for another 3 years, and then Teenage Hadabi being signed for I think 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure what the contract situation is on that. So there are a pair. Teenage is a DP defender, according to whatever the rules are, but you know, so obviously that's a big tag that he carries around for right now because he carries that DP label, unfortunately to him. But you know, those move that move is just a regular move that happens with LA Galaxy, with the LAFC, with the Seattle Sounder. You know, if Teenage the only reason I'll give this, I'll give them benefit of doubt is because of the whole, and them trying to catch up, trying to make sure they understand the situation, understand everything around, with the team and all that stuff. But other than that, Teenage shouldn't be our biggest acquisition this summer transfer window. That's just my thought on that entirely. So
Yeah, like I said, I agree with you, and I like to your point because this is important. You said it's a franchise-defining type of move. It doesn't have to be the big name move, but it's the franchise-defining type of move, and it's important because, you look at we also extended Tim Parker for another couple of years. I think 3 years total, and so we've got both players for 3 years. And there's no doubt that what we've done is we've literally brought in the expected starting center back pair for the next 3 seasons. That being the case, you'd only need two backups. You don't need more than two backups for your center backs. Maybe three or four, in the reserve league of young players that you can call up in the event of injury or whatever. We've got a Spurs versus Villa debate going on right now, and it's glorious. I'm so glad I'm not having to even participate.
well, look, before I just thought on my chat, but why both of y'all even complaining? Harry Kane and Jack Grealish are going to Man City.
They're not going to Man City together. That's already been stated that ain't happening, and it's got nothing to do with the city. It's got everything to do with the fact that it can't happen,
Yeah.
or it won't happen, I should say. But for all the conversation they're having, the important thing here though is if we have truly found it, and it is our center back pairing, and it turns out to be world class or at least good enough to be let's say CONCACAF Champions League class, So that's a great start in the right direction, but it's a start. It is not a finish. It is not a completion. It is not a done moment. Look, that is not the move that you finish everything on and you say, okay, we've got the piece that we needed to be an MLS championship team. I mean, the fact is this team, even with Teenage DB, is still probably not vying for an MLS championship trophy at this point in time. You've got to look at your Philly. You've got to look at your Seattle. You've got to look at the other teams that are at the top of the league right now, and they are good defensively, if not great defensively, for 90 minutes. We don't
Yeah.
have a team right now that is good or great defensively for 90 minutes. We have a team that can't even go 90 minutes. Go ahead, Mark.
If Teenage comes in and he solidifies the defense, that's great, right? That's awesome. You have one side of the ball, one side of the team, accomplished. But what I'm always gonna pitch on and debate about, no matter how good we think the Dynamo can be, or if they're playoff contenders or champion contenders or whatever, until they get a true playmaker, a true game changer on this squad that can carry the team when the team needs to be carried, for whatever reason, the Dynamo won't be a top echelon MLS team, you know, and that player doesn't come cheap, you know.
So let me ask this question. You're kind of getting towards it one way or the other, and we're going to talk about it, and we're ending at 9. That's my intent. So we have 15 minutes to talk about this. If at the end of the season we have not hit that big name, or we haven't hit that big signing or that key signing or whatever you want to call it, if Teenage DB and some sub striker are all we bring in, that's all we have by the end of the season. Number one, do you place that on Segal or do you place that on Matt Jordan? Number two, what do you expect in the offseason if that's the case? Do you expect then that they're looking for the big name? Do you expect Matt Jordan is gone? Do you expect we bring in a new GM? What are you
Or maybe even a
anticipating?
new coach.
That's very
Um,
possible as well.
like I said, this before the whole, before we even got to the point where a sale was even on the books, you know, I think we all agreed that Dynamo need to make the playoffs. They need to make the playoffs. That has to be like the bare minimum of success that we need for the season because of everything that that has happened with the squad. It being so many years now without playoffs, Tab has finally brought in some players that he handpicked. You know, uh, and things of that nature, right? So if whatever happens with this summer transfer window, let's say Teenage is the only guy that comes in and the dude the goofy guy from England, Bodock is our backup striker that's supposedly rumored to come to the Dynamo. Those are our only two signings, and we make the playoffs. Then I'm cool with that, right? But but then on the off season, that's where I'm gonna see how really how truthful Ted and his group of what and his management group or whatever are really serious about really bringing the Dynamo into the top echelon of MLS. Because the fact of the matter is, making the playoffs is great, and it's a huge step forward for the Dynamo because we haven't seen it in so long, right? But then we can't just be complacent and be okay. We made the playoffs. Okay, we can go without playoff soccer again for another 5 years. Nah, it doesn't go that way. You know, once we hit a mark, we need to be able to hit that mark again and run past that mark. And and how do you do that? By constantly rotating your team, by constantly bringing in new players, by constantly bringing in better quality of players. And obviously, we know better quality of players cost money. You know, because we're not homegrowing them here. We're not seeing success stories out of the academy yet. Hopefully, we do. But we're not Philadelphia Union. We're not FC Dallas as far as that standard goes. So we need to bring in players. We need to bring in players with better quality, who have better skill sets, who have better understanding, higher IQs, and things of that nature. And if we see those players come in and we see the money spent, then great. You know, then it's up to those players to be able to achieve the objective of making playoffs, making a deep run, winning U.S. Open Cup, making it to Champions League, CONCACAF Finals, maybe making a run to the MLS Cup, things of that nature. You know, I can't blame an owner for what happens on the pitch if he actually does something, to help the product on the pitch. At some point, it becomes a coach and player issue. You know?
And GM.
Yeah. Right now, we know it's an owner issue. Well, it was an owner issue, right? We know that. We know that. Okay. Now, if he's really true to his word and he's here to really bring the level of Dynamo FC up a couple of notches, then if he does it and he shows us and he brings in players that can really change the dynamic of this team and the culture, then great. Now it's up to Tab and Matt Jordan or whoever he picks because those both of those guys can be out. He might this might be a trial run for those two guys. And regardless of how much we love Tab and Tab is this and this and that, if Ted doesn't see it, guess what? Tab is out. So is Matt Jordan. So we'll see.
A question was asked, and we got 10 minutes. So it's good to answer this question. So Houston Dynamo Academy does not give good enough players. I'm gonna respond to that. It was not long ago, just really 2 or 3 years ago, that our academy was in complete shambles. I mean, we did not have much in the way of anything coming through that academy. And were it not for Paul Holliker coming in here and really taking the academy and turning it into something very viable, we wouldn't have anything in the way of some of the players that we have. We are still, George, I think hit the nail on the head there. We're still probably 2 to 3 years out. I've said 5 years for 3 years now, so we're 2 to 3 years out in my opinion, even still. And and yet we still have players like Danny Rios, Juan Castilla, Nico Lemoyne, Eric McHugh, technically. God, there's another one I can't remember off top.
Yeah.
Who?
Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, thank you, et cetera, et cetera. Who are coming through the ranks. Look, these kids that are coming out, they're not, in my opinion, they probably are MLS ready in terms of if they had a position where they could get a super sub minute, they could get super sub minutes. But for whatever reason, we have continued to push this idea, that our veteran players are that much better than these young kids. I think the fact is you at least have to give the young kids a chance. Let the kids show you that they can step up to the moment, that they can relish in the big moment and the big opportunity. I don't think there's any doubt that some of the players that have rode this bench this season, they've not been on the pitch. If they've been on the pitch at all, then why not give a kid the opportunity? Why not bring in Danny Rios and just let him get the feel of riding that bench. Let him get the feel of a minute or 2 minutes in a match. Just throw him out there. Let him see what he can do. I mean, Palomino would have been a great opportunity for that. That's another kid that I think honestly is ready to play. We've got a few kids like that are in prime positions, in areas where we need to upgrade. So, I think it falls on Tab to understand that and be willing to give the kids chances. He did it for a couple of matches last season, bringing in Lemoyne and God, who was the other kid? Palomino. Well, kind of, sort of Palomino, mostly Lemoyne. Last season, and it was just such a short period of time that that at the end of the they're going to struggle. That's going to happen. They're not going to be consistent. They're young kids. It's your responsibility as a coach to help them through that, to work them through that, to develop them enough that they can become the player with the talent level that you see. Go ahead.
There's two reasons why we're so far behind in that development stage. Reason number one, obviously, there was no focus for the academy prior to Paul coming in, so that in itself put us 10 years behind, 10, 15 years behind. And then especially what FC Dallas has done up there with everything as far as youth, they've really put a stamp not just in the Dallas area, but the whole Texas,
Dallas.
Southwest.
Look, you say Dallas, but it's not just Frisco. It's Frisco. It's KC. It's it's not just one team that stamped themselves in terms of the region.
It's the whole Southwest region of the United States that if FC Dallas comes looking at your kid, you're going to send them to go in that academy. Yeah. Second reason is that the Dynamo have been so bad as far as a team, first team, that they've brought in coaches. So ever Owen Coyle, Wayne Barry, Wilmer Cabrera. What was the other guy? I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now.
Owen Coyle.
Yeah, no, I think I said Owen Coyle, but all these coaches have been trying to get these below average players to get them on par to make playoffs and succeed at the MLS level. And there's no room for failure because they feel that they need to do it as quickly as possible because there's been such a drought in playoffs with the Dynamo ever since the Brenner administration took over, that they just they can't allow themselves to put on a young guy because they don't have the long enough leash to do that, you know? So that hampers the gateway to get to the first team because if my choice if I'm a coach on a team that I know needs instant success because of the bad success it's having and my job is on the line, and I'm gonna bring in a player that I have confidence in that I really know has played in those situations above a youth player because this is my job, this is my livelihood on the line here. So you also got to take those things into consideration as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you look across MLS, there are definitely teams that their academies are churning out prospects at unbelievable rates, and it makes you pause and take a look at what's going on with the Dynamo to think how far behind were we really when Holliker took over. Look, Holliker has pulled in some incredible prospects, and he has made tremendous headway, but to be as far behind as we have been, it is not an overnight success thing. It is never going to be that way. It's going to take many years. Go ahead.
But just think about it. Think about the 2018 U.S. Open Cup Championship. It was who? It was us versus Philadelphia Union, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we whooped them 3-0. We took the cup.
Thanks, Austin Trusty.
Queremos la copa, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Look at the two teams since that match. Look how far along Philadelphia Union are ahead of the Dynamo as far as a complete team, first team,
Yeah.
and as an academy. Look how many players have gone on to European football from Philadelphia Union.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's just like I said, it's one of those things where there's been mismanagement, there's been lack of focus on that side of the ball, on that side of the club because Houston Dynamo Academy is part of the club. It's just been a whole lot of fumbling.
I will
And
note one of the things that Segal did say in his interviews is that he understands or he believes that the Dynamo need to become a team that also develops their own players and then sells them on to Europe. He
of
wants to be a
course,
selling team as well. And that excites me because that's a guy, an owner who understands that it's not just about developing players to keep them here at the club. It's about developing them to a high enough level that they go above what you are able to offer them and they go somewhere bigger and better.
think
And we've
about it.
not had that.
I mean, I know we're coming close to shut off time, but let me make this comment right before we go. Think about Brian Reynolds from FC Dallas. He was gonna take over for Reggie Cannon as soon as he got transferred to Boa Vista, and out of nowhere, you got teams from like Juventus, Roma, Milan, all these Italian teams and French teams looking to pick him up, and this is supposed to be a replacement for the guy you just let go to go to Portugal. FC Dallas doesn't care. They say, okay, cool. You if you want him, how much you want? How much you gonna
Yeah.
pay?
Yeah.
Do you think they care if there's anybody coming up after him? No, because it's one of those things where like, look, if there is somebody behind them, great. If there's not somebody behind them, then with that money we can go and find somebody to be a plug player at the very minimum. You know, you got to be able to think like that. You can't be selfish on your part. Be like, okay, well, if Juventus or Roma want him, then obviously he's a big time talent. So why, as FC Dallas, why wouldn't I want to keep him here? Because he would improve my team vastly on my first team pitch. It's just because that's not the level of soccer that you're in. You know, this league, unfortunately, we're not the biggest league in the world. We're not there yet. We're nowhere close to that.
Yeah.
We have to be a selling league.
Yep. I'm gonna close with this thought because I think it's really interesting. It's something I've been wondering. The new CEO Jamie Roots, he has connections with teams overseas. He has an international football connection in terms of soccer and in terms of NFL. That's important because there are plenty of organizations overseas that there are opportunities if you have the right players in the right positions to be able to connect with those organizations. Perhaps one of the things that Jamie Roots will be bringing to this club is a connection with a serious European team looking to connect our academy, looking to connect with our players, looking to become a pipeline organization. Perhaps it results in a loan that is brought to us or a loan that is brought to them, but either way, perhaps we see an improvement in that area tremendously much quicker than we anticipate simply by having Jamie Roots being here. Look, what I'm trying to say is Jamie Roots was definitely the guy that needed to be in the position he's in. The fact that we were able to get him, it speaks highly of what this change in ownership is going to yield. Buckle up, guys. It's only going to get better from here. I can almost promise that. Let's see what happens next. I'm here for the ride. I don't know about you, Mark, but I'm ready to say it loud and proud. Hold it down. Hopefully, Nestor saw my message.